Another day, another bank failure. Yes, here we are. First Republic fails, and guess who swoops in to buy them up? I'll cover that here in this video, but more importantly, we need to zoom out and start to actually realize what this is truly about. You're going to get the information on the mainstream media, they'll tell you the statistics. You'll go to the alternative and they'll point to one politician or another. On this video, I'm going to show you what's actually important so that you are empowered to learn what's going on behind the scenes so that you can figure it all out for yourself. Let's go. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. First Republic Bank is seized, sold to JPMorgan in second largest US bank failure. This is kind of becoming a trend here, don't you think? We are seeing the dominoes. In fact, going through this whole process is starting to remind me a lot of what we have seen in previous cycles, that it's not a soft landing, that companies do fail, and that yes, printing money can make stocks go higher and can make certain assets levitate, but it cannot fix problems. And what if it was just possible, maybe it was possible, that this is all being done intentionally? Whoa, don't go there. Look here. Lender teetered for weeks after Silicon Valley Bank's collapse. I talked about this actually. In fact, if you had been watching this channel throughout the entire time, I've showed you First Republic, gave you all the insight, and told you that it would likely be failing in the near future. And here it is. Regulators seized First Republic Bank and struck a deal to sell a bulk of its operations to guess who? JPMorgan, heading off a chaotic collapse that threatened to reignite the recent banking crisis. This is a collapse. As I have said before, a company can collapse, and it can collapse into this case here, into JPMorgan's lap. Do you see? It is a collapse. You can print money, you can have these bailouts, but you cannot structurally fix these problems. The problems are there, and they are done this way on purpose. Here we have it. JPMorgan said it will assume all of First Republic's $92 billion in deposits, insured and uninsured. It is also buying most of the bank's assets, including about $173 billion in loans, $30 billion in securities. So we can buy these things for pennies on the dollar. You and I, when you go to the store, when you want to buy a stock, when you want to buy a piece of real estate, land, anything, generally you pay market value. Occasionally, you might get a discount on these assets because maybe the husband and wife are getting a divorce, unfortunately. Maybe there was, an estate settlement. So you can get that. They just want to sell. They want to move on. Something happens. People need to leave the city, leave the country. Assets are being sold quickly. Foreclosure. Any of these are circumstances, okay? In this case here, though, you see that they get that sweetheart deal, JPMorgan, all these other big banks. Because why? They are friends with the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, the government as a whole. This is a revolving door. And if we start to open up our minds to the concept, to the possibility that maybe all of this exists only to further consolidate power and control over periods of time, well then it starts to make us question everything. And that's what we should be doing today. Okay, there is more in here in the details, of course. You're gonna see JPMorgan getting $50 billion in financing from the FDIC and all of that. I get it. But the deeper level to this is simply to start asking the questions, the right questions. Shouldn't we be doing that? Who, in fact, is JPMorgan? Well, JPMorgan was instrumental in the founding of the Federal Reserve. It is an absolute fact. You could read all about it. I'm sure some of you have. The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. Great book, breaks it all down. But even just a search or two online and you'll find it for yourself. All of the big boys were there. All of these financial establishments met in secret on Jekyll Island to determine the future of your currency. And that is what we've highlighted all along. And you start to realize who stands to gain? Cui bono? Well, I think it's pretty clear that JPMorgan stands to gain in this case here. JPMorgan did this on the other failures as well. They are getting bigger and bigger. Power is being consolidated. And if we ignore that, well, then I think you're making a big mistake. JP Morgan has now become the biggest bank in this way. Yeah, you can look at assets and maybe Vanguard, you want to point there, BlackRock over here, JP Morgan, as well as Goldman Sachs. But just over the last little while, it's clear JP Morgan has some tentacles in and everywhere. This government, all of the financial establishments are basically wrapping their arms around the government, the central bank. I mean, come on. Do we have to go into this? In 2008 financial crisis, you had all of the bankers, basically Jamie Dimon, you have Blankfein, all of these guys lined up. They grilled them from Congress. Oh, you didn't do this and you weren't watching this and we're going to regulate you. And then what happened? A few months later, they call them back in and say, help us, please. It's a fraud, it's a scam, and you are being sold a lie each and every day. But that's why you came here for the truth. I actually break down in another video exactly what you need to know why this can happen again tomorrow. Stay tuned, okay? I'll show you that in just a second. JP Morgan deal forces Biden administration to defend record on mergers, saying, hey, don't worry about it. You're good. You're all good. No concern, right? First Republic fallout, Democrats fume as regulators bail out yet another failed bank. They want to point to left and right. But of course, this is a false paradigm that exists only in the mind and in the structure and that which they've created. They make it seem as if there's a left and right, but of course, there's nothing of the sort. First Republic earnings reveal extent of March deposit exodus. There you go. Total deposit balance fell by a net total 41% in the first quarter. So people took their cash and they fled as expected. And those are the numbers there, from 176 to $104 billion. People just said, no, I ain't having it. I'm taking my money out. Who were the beneficiaries of that? JP Morgan. JP Morgan was just, they were just getting these flows inward. They were saying, thank you for the failure. Thank you for the failure. They were loving it all. At the same time, money market funds were getting a lot of that too. Okay. So here we have it. JP Morgan boss plays down the risk of crisis after second biggest bank failure in US history. When people start to think about what this all is, remember, number one, this is, in fact, a banking crisis. Don't push it off. Don't say that, oh, well, look at the stock market. That's not what this is. Okay, you gotta understand that this is a fundamental problem that's going on. And so you can look at it, and of course, JP Morgan boss Jamie Dimon is going to say everything's A-okay. Who's benefiting the most out of this? His bonus is going to be crazy this year. He's going to party, let me tell you. He's going to be partying big time. First Republic Bank collapse spurs fears for the banking system and the broader economy. And that should be the concern, of course, because it tells us that they've got a lot at stake when it's one after the other, after the other, after the other. This is not over. This is a 68 trillion, you heard me correct, 68 trillion bank crisis. You want to know about that? Stick to the end. I'll show you all about it. $68 trillion. And you might be asking, I've got a lot of questions that I need answered, and I hope somebody can start to dig up that info. Well, I want to show you something else. JPMorgan Chase purchase of First Republic Bank is intended to end a budding financial crisis, but it risks doing so by reviving a political battle over the power of the nation's largest financial institutions. Yes, of course. That should be the question you begin to ask. If we only have a couple banks, we have less competition. How would you like it if there was only one restaurant chain? That's it. There's only one. You don't have any variety. You got, let's say, McDonald's. McDonald's buys out Burger King. McDonald's buys out Wendy's. McDonald's Subway. McDonald's buy everything. They just buy everything and slowly but surely replace the entire menu with just McDonald's stuff. That's it. You got no other options. How would you like that? Well, that's basically what's happening today, but in the banking system, in pharma, all of these things. You got to realize that. And what about Bayer and Monsanto? Do we need to go there? Crazy. You do not want that. You want competition. You want active competition. You don't want lobbyists. You don't want this fraud. This is terrible. This is dangerous. Biden promises banking system is safe and sound after First Republic collapse. Yes, of course, they're going to do this. The politicians are going to do this. They're going to tell you everything's A-OK, and you got to suck it down. The Fed says, don't worry about US banks. But why should anyone believe them? It's very funny because they love, like everybody loves the Fed. Come on, it's just you and I. It's basically like us, like 1,000 people who are watching this video, and they're going to say, well, you know what? Everything is A-OK. And we're going to sit here saying, yeah, right. But then we go to tell our brother and our sister and our mother and our father, and we're going to say, hey, look, you got to check this thing out. It's crazy. Banking crisis, $68 trillion. And they're going to say, look, I don't know anything about that, but I could tell you everything about Kim Kardashian and what she wore to the next event. That's the way it goes. Treasury Yellen says US could default as soon as June 1st. Complete nonsense, but they will stretch this out and they will make sure that you believe that the US government's going to go down so that they can push through some laws that you know are going to be there to shrink the middle class, extend the power for the rich, and this will be something that is just part of a cycle. So here it is. This is a video that I did recently, and I think it's important that people check it out. It's this right here. You can see the screenshot, but also at the same time, it is called $68 trillion bank crisis. I hope that you will check this out. I'll pop it up on the screen and I'll see you there. Take care.